كل من عليها فان.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري. Ayat number 26 of Surah Rahman makes a bold statement. Allah SWT says, "Whoever is on the earth will perish." It is something we all know but fail to make it part of our reality. And that is the reason many of us fall into depression and anxiety. When Allah SWT created us, He has mentioned it time and again throughout the Quran that everything on the earth will perish and get destroyed. The nature of our creation is to perish. As mentioned in Surah Yasin, Allah SWT so eloquently mentions in Ayat number 68 that as we grow older, our growth degenerates. Our debilitation makes us vulnerable like little children that need constant care. When Allah SWT mentions earth being perished in Ayat number 26 of Surah Rahman, He means the definition of earth being combined with the heavens to include everything of creation being annihilated. Surah Al-Anbiya, Ayat number 30 reminds us that the heavens and the earth were once a combined entity. Allah SWT decided to split them later. Ayat number 27 of Surah Rahman takes the concept further and mentions that only the essence or face of Allah SWT remains, as Allah cannot become Fana, annihilated. But upon closer introspection, a look at Surah Al Nahl, Ayat number 96 reveals, "The riches that you possess will be no more, and what is with Allah will last." This statement clearly tells us that everything attached to Allah SWT in His cause shall remain. So what are those things that we can attach to Allah SWT? Surah Baqarah, Ayat number 110 sheds some light on that. It mentions, "And whatever virtue you will send ahead, you shall find it with Allah." This virtue is best explained later on in Surah Rahman in Ayat number 60. The reward of good cannot be anything but good. This ihsan has no limitation except of what is set by Allah's standard and varies from person to person, and hence its reward is ajrun kabir. A beautiful example of this reward is demonstrated in the story of a false accusation made to dishonor Hazrat Aisha radhiyallahu anha, which was later discovered that one of the culprits discrediting her was none other than an orphan relative of hers, whom Hazrat Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anha was supporting and giving charity to. Allah refers to this incident in Surah An-Nur in Ayat number 22, instructing Hazrat Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu not to stop the charity. And we learn that if we truly forgive those who have wronged us, Allah's forgiveness for us will become wajib, i.e. mandatory. What a beautiful example of Ar-Rahman and His mercy, and how such a beautiful deed remains and gets attached to Allah SWT and not get fana. Sometimes it gets very difficult to do the right thing, to keep attaching the virtue of our good deeds to Allah SWT. So Allah SWT tells us in Surah Ibrahim, Ayat number 27, that He keeps the believers firm-footed in the life of this world as well, and in the hereafter, with the blessing of this firm word. In a hadith reference, Khazain Ibrahim, verses 24, 3/81, Rasulullah SAW has been reported to have mentioned that this word, Kalima Tayyiba, is La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Allah SWT also gives us an example in Surah Ibrahim, ayat number 24, of how a good deed attached to him is like a tree with its roots firm in the ground and its branches reaching the sky. Also, the constant zikr of the Durood Sharif, which we contribute to Allah SWT, and the angels' recitation. The ajr of that will be sent ahead for us. Subhanallah and Ameen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tells us the state of those people who keep sending virtue of their good deeds ahead of them and attaching them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His cause. He mentions in Surah Al Nahl, ayats number 8 to 9, that their faces will be full of pleasure and happiness, glowing with joy and freshness on the day of judgment. To die in Allah's cause could be a physical death, like actually fighting in a war or other work for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or a spiritual death where many try to achieve the station of Fana fillah, i.e. annihilation in the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is also known as death before dying. Those who do die in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do not believe that they are actually even dead. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions these martyrs in Surah Baqarah, ayat number 154 in the Quran, that they are rather alive and are given their sustenance from Him. And Surah Al Imran, ayats 169 to 171, goes further, saying that we should not even think that such martyrs are dead. In fact, we should say that they are alive. The best example, in my opinion, of Fana, death, annihilation, in the spiritual sense, is in the case of the Arif. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions such a person of extremely high status in Surah Baqarah, ayat number 207, in which He mentions, and on the contrary, amongst people there is also someone who sells his life to attain the pleasure of Allah. This Ramzan, let us ponder on the irony of our existence, that we want to create things that are extremely durable and remain permanent, whereas Allah, who has created us, has clearly designed us to die and become fana at a precise moment in time. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also has the ability to create things that can last forever, like pearls and gold. But He chooses to create us in such a way that we do not last. So, instead of taking a lesson from this stark reality, we make such efforts to delay the process of our death, to defy it in many ways. For example, by taking many supplements like HGH and nowadays Ozempic for losing weight, doing plastic surgeries, etc. We fail to understand that death is happening at every stage of our lives, in every moment that we breathe. We inch closer to our death. Hence, everything in our past is essentially death, as we can never bring that time back. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Mulk mentions that He created death before He created life. But desire for permanence has been subconsciously created in our DNA, because our souls have once walked in the Alam-e-Arwa, the world before our creation on earth. What we should strive for here is sakina, the tranquility of heart within us, and also within our relationship with others. And that is like a feeling of Jannah. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Thank you for watching. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you found this reflection on Surah Rahman meaningful, please like and share with those who may benefit, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. May Allah's rahmah and barakah be with you and your loved ones this Ramzan and always. Ameen. Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram.